So I thought the topic that I wanted to present today is on extinction because there's a lot of I mean it's basically what we do on a daily basis, but then there's a lot of issues going about it or concerns, and I think there's like things that are becomes a controversy, not really a controversy, but then it puts out a lot of questions onto extinction. Um, I think like with now as behavior analysis evolves and we're focusing more on positive reinforcement, proactive approaches, and also because of legislations and restrictive practice. So extinction is it's not as freely used as it used to be, because like when I first started, when we did it, like when we implemented extinction, it was very different. It's different in the sense that we didn't reinforce the behavior at all, but we had to go through an extinction burst, which we all know that extinction bursts have its side effects. So I thought that's would be a nice topic of discussion, since we do have, I mean, we deal with behaviors on a daily basis. Okay, so one of the articles that I came across, it's actually short, but it was very interesting and straight to the point. So I thought I'd use this one. It's an article published in 1996 by Shukla and Albin. So they focus on the effects of extinction, comparing the use of extinction alone and extinction plus an alternative behavior, which in this case, they use the functional communication training as the alternative. Any questions before I move on?
Nope.
Yep. Okay, cool. All right. So the article here, basically the purpose again is to compare two uses of extinction: one, extinction on its own, and extinction with an alternative behavior. So we all know that behavior, it happens because our kids or our individuals can't communicate, right? Or we know that extinction happens because the client's needs are not met. We all know that extinction happens because there has been a long history of reinforced behaviors, and then we suddenly want to, okay, well, you're not going to have it now, and guess what? Well, we have this extinction burst that we have to go through. And what we see sometimes also is that when we try to change, when we try to change one behavior of concern, another one pops up, right? And it's like, oh, well, the child never done that before. Or we'll try to address one behavior, which is not, let's say it's moderately severe. But when we put that in extinction, we find that a more severe behavior pops up, because like we know that like when we do extinction, an extinction burst always follows, right? Sometimes extinction bursts have a progression. Sometimes extinction burst just happens on its own, like just immediately, like from calm state of behavior, and then suddenly, they jump up to a very severe behavior. But we also see with the implementation of extinction that a client may exhibit minor behavior first, and then a little bit more moderate, and then finally that big behavior that you see. So I think like with changes in how applied behavior analysis works nowadays, and with changes in legislation, changes in ethics, we're moving towards a more, I don't know what the best word to say, but I would say like a more considerate approach if for lack of better word. So meaning that, or all right, we all know that we can't reinforce this behavior, because if we do, it's just gonna the client will always learn that, oh, I can always get what I want with this. But in order to teach that with a more considerate approach, we need to think about looking at intervening quicker and intervening with a replacement behavior. And again, we all know that behaviors occur because a person is trying to communicate, but doesn't have the capacity to communicate. Okay. So that's what this Richard article is about. So in the study, they are looking at targeting less and more severe behaviors. So those are the two that they're looking at, the target behavior that they're going to look at. In the article, in the research, they conducted first a functional analysis. There's this test, the subject is a 16 or 18-year-old male. And so they first conduct the functional analysis, and they did two conditions, which is the demand and the play condition. So the less severe behavior that the participant exhibited is walking away from the task area, pushing or putting away task materials, but the more severe behaviors would be property destruction, like throwing and pounding objects, some self-injurious behaviors like hitting or slapping self, and some aggression as well, which is hitting and kicking other people. So in the study, what they did was they taught the individual when to use functional communication. So they first started off with, when you teach, of course, you have to prompt, right? So they taught the person to request, say, for example, manually signing break when the person wants to escape from a task or avoid a task. But so that was the primary intervention. What's it called? The independent variable. The independent variable is that. In that situation, what the study found was that the individual used more and more functional communication to communicate his needs. And what they saw is that the behaviors started decreasing or close to zero. So both for the minor behaviors and the major behaviors. However, in the extinction by itself condition, what they saw was when one behavior is punished, there's another one that came up. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not effective, because there's how do you say it? Like it's in comparison to the other, it's not an effective approach just to use extinction alone. Okay, so like these are things that we typically go through on a daily basis, right? We know now that, whenever we want to deal with a behavior, whenever we want to decrease the behavior, we have to up their skills, because we know that behaviors occur because it is a lack of skill. It is not because a person wants to lash out or be aggressive just by itself, but there's always a reason. And we've taken a lot of measures to be more careful in using extinction in our daily in our practices with our clients. So basically, I just wanted to.
I don't see your presentation anymore.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
There you go. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. One second. Okay. Yeah, so this is, sorry, I skipped this page. I forgot to show you. So this is just the result from the study. So like we just previously discussed, like the condition where the functional when functional communication was used with extinction, there were more desirable results whereas where the person is communicating more spontaneously and the behaviors are decreasing. But with the application of the extinction alone, it continued to produce escape behaviors. There were more severe responses with the behavior escalation. The topography that was there were behaviors that didn't exist before but existed because the person's trying more and more to get what they want. So that was the result. Sorry, one second. So what's the implication? Maybe we can discuss this because there are some implication around the uses of extinction. So again, what is the impact of extinction on the ethics? What's extinction on safety for the client or for ourselves? Back then in 2000, when we did extinction, it was like we even implemented physical restraint. And I can tell you that it wasn't quite safe. Safe for the client, not safe for us. Back then, again, like in the dark ages, we didn't have a strong government legislation, to protect clients or to protect ourselves. So extinction can be dangerous for both. If it reaches a point, it can be dangerous for both us and other. And what do we do in that situation? Sometimes it may call for using restrictive practices, which we don't want to use. But again, like how much of restrictive practice should we use? And it also involves training people to implement restrictive practices if an extinction occurs. Not everybody's have the capacity to deal with extinction. Even like simple minor behaviors like crying or, just a meltdown like tantrum, crying and just laying on the floor screaming. Not everybody have the capacity to go through that. And a lot of families cave in to that, and which makes it worse because we're actually, with all that behavior, caving in is reinforcing the behavior. So again, the client or the child learns that with this behavior, I can get what I want. So again, I think it's when we want to implement extinction, we also have to consider, does everybody have the capacity to do that? And then, so with all of this, again, going back, we're looking more at more proactive approaches. Let's avoid these extinction bursts. When we do extinction, what are proactive strategies that we can use? When do we do that? When do we implement that? And the thing also is that sometimes when we have a plan, like, okay, you're right, I'm not going to reinforce the behavior, I'm going to do extinction, but I'm going to replace it with a simple behavior, alternative behavior, which is just an eye contact, or just a person to say no, or maybe to touch a button on the Pro Loco or the lamp. But then what happened is that, like, again, when you say, no, you can't have that, we're kind of like in this mindset where, oh, okay, the child might whine, he might like stomp his feet. Okay, I can still redirect the child to do a, to look at me or communicate with me in an appropriate way, and I can reinforce that behavior. But then sometimes you have that behavior that just shoots up real quick, smack in the head. No, I can't have that. Why don't you try this? And wham, your head gets hit. They're like, bugger. How can I redirect? He's already escalated. So what we know that when a person's already highly escalated, it's hard to redirect them to use to the appropriate behavior or to communicate using the lamp because they're already quickly heightened. And again, in order for us to communicate, to learn, to be prompted, the client has to be in a state of calm state. And again, so then which means that we have to go through the extinction burst again, right? Looking at that, if it happens in the clinic, there's safety measures, we can still secure the environment. We can get people out of the room. We can try to make the room, as calm as possible for the individual to calm down. We can put in things that coping strategies in place. We can put in bean bags, or I don't know, like squishy toys, sensory toys, stuff like that. Anything, or blanket, a pillow, a tent. So we can give those in preparation, but or at home. But when you're out in the community, in a supermarket, or in a shop, or in a playground, when there are other kids around, there's other people around, these are things that can be quite challenging to implement. So I just think it would be quite a good discussion to maybe share our experience, maybe one Ji-un or Felicia or Amna might have some experience that are successful and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll just end it here. Do you have any question first before we go in discussion?
I do. I have a short question. So I was wondering, is this because extinction in modern ABA practices has always been offered in package nowadays, right? It's extinction plus DRA. Usually it's a package, right? Which is exactly what this paper is talking about. My question is it's really simple. I wonder if this is the first paper that talked about extinction and DRA as a package. Do you happen to know?
There are other articles, but I don't think this is the first one, though. There are other articles that talk about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Tanti.
No
And
worries.
thank you for bringing all the discussion points that we can discuss. Do you want to go through all of them, or if people can just talk about what they specifically want to talk about with their experience, they can go ahead. Which one would you prefer?
Maybe to have a discussion would be great. I think when we talk about a certain research paper, it's good to talk about experience, so again, what is it in the real life, what is it on the practical side of this. Again, what I find that's very challenging is I love the research articles. They're a good source of information, but
yes, there's always a but.
Look, I think the nice thing about research and experiments is that it's in a controlled environment. But real ABA is everywhere. It's in the home, it's in the clinic, it's out in the community. It takes so many different forms.
That's true.
And then what's difficult also is that this focuses on the client, implementing extinction and functional communication with the client. But then you have a parent that's next to you that's breaking down, right? So it's sort of like, I feel like there's so many uncontrolled variables that come into place. On the one side, sometimes you want to, you know what you have to do, and but like maybe someone in the environment is criticizing, and then somebody or maybe a parent have their own way of instead of extinction, they feel that, oh no, this is not, no, trying to teach them, train them, calm down, we're not going to reinforce this behavior, we're going to do functional communication, but instead of the functional communication, the parent escalates also. And then so you have all this, okay, all right, what are we going to do? Like, which one should I calm down first, the parent or the child?
Mm-hmm.
Very real.
Yeah. Alicia, do you want to go ahead first?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, that's so real, right? So real. I have a client who is basically textbook ABA kid. He's like your dream client because he has this really crazy, challenging behavior. He would swear at his elders, which is, will give him a lot of high quality attention during family functions, right? Like he would zero in on his great grandmother and call the grandmother the S word. So that was the family came to us with that, and we did all sorts of things, and we found out that the function of his behavior was attention. And so we implemented plan ignoring plus DRA. If he wanted to get attention appropriately, he could raise his hand. We would give him high quality attention, right? And it worked like a charm. Even though it worked like a charm, we had quite a bit of pushback from parents to when we asked them to ignore him swearing. And so we struggled a little bit with that, but we kept at it, and finally the behavior went away for good. Knock on wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been thinking a lot about this, and then I had been reading about extinction and how extinction is, like you have presented very nicely, Tanti, that it's often unethical, it's often undoable, right? Like, for example, if my client said all these bad words to his great grandmother, you cannot tell everybody at the family function to ignore him, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just simply not possible. So like more recent articles had also explored, much to my relief, more recent articles have explored what if we don't do extinction at all? So instead of extinction, they did concurrent schedule of reinforcement. So like theoretically, an organism will choose a richer schedule of reinforcement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they played with, and so I guess it answered my question. Even though parents were not able to implement extinction as perfectly as we did in a controlled clinical environment, it still worked. It's because my organism has learned this alternative skill, and even though there was a concurrent schedule of reinforcement, he predictably chose a richer one. When he's able to bid for attention in an acceptable way, in a socially acceptable way, then he gets high quality attention from his environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was really interesting to imagine a world without extinction, since we use technology so much in our field.
And again, like extinction is not, it's not ignoring it per se. It's just not reinforcing the behavior. I think like it's it's not reinforcing the behavior. And again, like, there's different ways of approaching. I think ABA has become clever to with different strategies nowadays. I think it's still true to the core, but they've become I think ABA has become more positive. And I think that we're also learning to intervene quicker, or teaching the skills, instead of like waiting for a behavior to happen and going through all this responsive strategies and stuff like that. We've become we're looking more at proactive strategies. So I think, like, the component, like when we look at ABA, like, proactive strategy should be like 80% of what we do.
Right.
And yeah, the teaching, because again, like, we know that the behaviors happen because there's a lack of skill, or they don't know a better way of asking. So again, the teaching skill come in place, like, and teaching's like starting to teach with minor, like in a not in controlled setting. How would I say it? Like in a like with minor behaviors, because minor behaviors are easier to redirect, right? So it's like teaching them using that, and then general, and then when they learn that, oh, you know what, I can just ask for it. But like you said, they get access to this richer reinforcement, versus when we are reacting to that severe behavior. I think sometimes also people tend to, it's not easy. Like we know we're trained to do more proactive strategies, but our clients, families tend to be more reactive, especially if they are at low capacity. So like I have a family, same, like spitting at people, touching people's bum, things like that. It's all from the data. It's attention seeking. And I keep asking the parents, like, what is his facial reaction when he does that? Oh, he smiles and he giggles. Okay, so that's attention. And I have to explain to them that attention is not, it's not always positive attention. It's not like attention, hey mom, pay attention to me, look at what I'm doing. It's not that. Attention also can consist of getting a negative reaction. And some kids do like to see negative reactions from other people. But when families are just burned out, it's so hard for them to do these proactive strategies. Then they just fall back again to that reactive strategy, the screaming, the yelling at the child. And again, like, I'm not criticizing parents for reacting that way, because I can, like, some families do have very very hard situations that they're in. So I think, again, it's really hard for families. And I think, like, when the family have the capacity and they learn they can do it. But if they don't, then it's like, it's really hard. It's just teaching one thing. It's for them to be calm. That's it. I mean, before we even go into teaching them to respond to the correct behavior, or reinforce the appropriate behavior, or even teach them or redirecting to the appropriate behavior, it's just simply as getting them to be calm.
I am glad that recent data is showing us that even without a perfectly executed extinction, it can still go away.
Yeah.
It may, I think, alleviate some of the stress that these family, or even practitioners like us, feel, right? Because sometimes we're like, okay, there's just no hope, because because these families just simply do not have the capacity to ride through the extinction burst.
Yeah, that's true. Amna, do you have? Oh, sorry, Tanti, do you have?
No.
Yeah. Now, do you want to have a turn?
Yes,
first?
sure. I had just a few points to make regarding the list of discussion points on the screen. The first one being ethics. And, going back to the 7 dimensions of ABA, we can, we can now come to the conclusion that extinction by itself, on its own, as an intervention, is not effective. It is not socially like acceptable in a lot of situations. It's not doesn't have the social validity. Um, then that's because, like Santi said from the beginning, it does not teach a new skill, and usually, or almost always, the challenging behaviors that we see are a way for the individuals to communicate a want or a need. And through extinction, even though we are not reinforcing the behavior, and it might decrease because, or yeah, there is a good chance it will decrease because of that, but then there's no long term, it's not a long term solution. It's not really fixing the problem because it's not teaching the individual an alternative way to communicate what they want or need. So as a result, the motivation will still be there, minus the means to access what they want. So by combining extinction with functional communication, like that's a much better intervention and a much better approach, because that way you are giving the individual the means to access what they have the MO for, what the motivation is there for. And the second point is regarding safety. And that is a really good point, because one of the most difficult things is escape maintained behavior. And that's where, traditionally we would have used escape extinction. Like imagine a child attempting to elope, to leave a room or a table area, and the practitioner, the RBT, like having to physically restrain them or like block them from leaving the area. But it is very uncomfortable and also doesn't work unless the learner is smaller than you and weaker than you. And it doesn't look good. Like you don't want to be sitting in a session where the parents watching you and we're like physically restraining the kid. So yeah, like not great. Um, and then yeah, there's potential for harming the child unintentionally, like with grabbing them and stuff like that. So not great overall. But the third point is regarding, I guess it also connects with the issue of escape extinction also. But it's more specifically about another good point that Santi made earlier. It was about, let's say we taught functional communication and the individual, the child, is now able to ask for what they want appropriately and get it. But then occasionally you'll still have to say no. Sometimes it's not available. Sometimes they can't have it.
Yeah.
And that's when we'll see a spike in behavior again. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with Greg Hanley's work on My Way. And like he has this beautiful package of like it's an intervention that does everything. It does extinction, it does functional communication training, it does tolerance response. So when the child is, so let me break it down the way it is in the intervention, but also correct me if I misremember something, because it's been a while since I looked through it. But basically, like to sum it up, the first phase would be to teach the functional communication training. So to teach the functional communication response, I mean. And once a child is able to consistently ask for what they want, that's when they would start to teach the child to demonstrate the tolerance response, which is, for example, thumbs up. When you say no to the child, you can't have that, not right now, the child would either say okay if they're verbal, or do a thumbs up or something of that sort to indicate like okay, fine, like I'm okay with that. And then they would still reinforce the child anyway by giving them what they wanted. And then the following phase would be the intermittent reinforcement, where sometimes they would reinforce the child immediately. Sometimes they would say, no, you can't have what you asked for, and instead give the child a task to do. And sometimes they would immediately reinforce, like they would reinforce the functional communication response. So it was like three conditions: either immediately reinforce the functional communication, or reinforce the tolerance response, or give the child a task to do. And the variability of the reinforcement, the variability of the schedule, ensured that the child tolerance response um, continued throughout those different conditions because it was random and intermittent. Um, it's a really solid intervention and really successful with a lot of children. But yeah, so I think those are the 3 points I just wanted to add to the conversation.
Thanks,
Thank
Amna.
you. Amna, do you have you told us that you've seen many clients being successful with those SBT.
Yeah.
Do you have your own case who
I
has
do.
You do.
I did it with 2 clients before. One of them, it was not successful. I reached halfway through, and then the mom was like not happy with her son's progress, so we had to discontinue. But with the other one, he was successful. And those are my only 2 stories. But that was a few years ago. I don't have a lot of clients these days, so like I haven't been able to use it. Yeah, but I know like from the online community, it's been successful with a lot of children, but not my own, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
What's the frequency of clinical visits would, let's say, to have success?
According to Greg Hanley, he says 30 hours.
A
30
week.
hours, not a week, no, in total. But for
like
me, that was
total,
not the case.
like the intensive
Yeah,
program.
yeah. So like it could be like 1 hour a week over 30 weeks, or however many. But like he says that they can achieve that, like they can achieve those outcomes within 30 hours, if I'm not mistaken in remembering that.
So that would
But with me,
require.
no, it took longer because I was just doing supervision once every 2 weeks with that client, but the RBT was with him 1 hour a day. So she worked with him daily, but just for an hour. And like the progress was quite fast. But I have to say that this child who was successful with the program was verbal. Like he was able to communicate vocally. And I think that makes a difference from my experience based on like the 2 clients I tried it with.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that has been like empirically proven or that was just my own experience, but yeah.
How about the HRE part? Did the client, the client who was verbal, did the client have more of the HRE condition applicable things?
Yes, that's a good question. But happy, relax, and engage. So I feel when I first tried the intervention, the SBA, that was, I think, in the early years. I think it was about 5 years ago, and it was before they uh, adapted the HRE aspect of it. It was before because I remember I did the 10-hour CEU
Yes.
from Greg Henley, yeah, and was the first time I've heard of HRE. And if I'm not mistaken in remembering, I think in that CEU, in that presentation, he did say that it was a new adaptation of the intervention because originally it wasn't there. It was just maybe time-based. I can't remember, to be honest. But the HRE aspect of it, which is like, if anyone is not sure what that means, waiting for the client to be happy, relaxed, and engaged again before putting in the EO and prompting, for example, the communication response. So the client has to be happy, relaxed, and engaged before presenting a new trial for teaching the communication response and so on.
Mhm.
But I did not do that back in the day.
Okay. All right.
I think there's a lot of progress if our clients are happy, relaxed, and engaged. Because I think it's I think the best learning comes with when a child is calm. And as I spoke with advice like parents, like the learning is only going to happen if your child is in the green zone. When he's calm, he's ready to learn. But if he's already in the orange zone or the yellow zone or the red zone, that's it's all about coping strategies. It's all about de-escalation. There can be no teaching at that time because you have to have like a sense of calm, a sense of like when emotions outweigh things, it's just it's like a tornado. But yeah, I think Hadley studies is quite interesting. But I think like with when you see a client fortnightly, that's for an hour, that's where it becomes that's the hardest part.
Yeah, no, the RPT who was working with him was doing her coursework to become a BCBA. So she is now a BCBA. So she was very competent. Like she was, an RBT that did her homework. I could trust her to like reach out to me if she felt like she was in over her head or not sure. So yeah, I think it would depend on who's running the program. Because if someone not very experienced, you'd have to be with them for definitely more than 1 hour every 2 weeks.
Yeah, teaching the tolerance part is that's what I like. Because I think again, it's just hard because I don't know, like if you want to integrate a child into the community, like I get very uncomfortable in a sense that when a child has sensitivity towards environmental triggers, sounds, people, crowds, things like that. And that's the trigger for the behaviors. So what do I do? Like, okay, that's his needs. He's aversive to that. But if we don't integrate him, he's not going to be able to be part of community. He's not going to be able to be independent. It's hindering his integration into the community. So then again, it's like, all right, if I'm going to do this, it's all about that tolerating the environment, and hence again, extinction comes into place, right? And then and it's a very tough situation because on the one end, if the child walks in and then communicates, hey, I don't want to be here. It's like, it's their right, again, can you just stay there for a little bit longer, just and then we'll ditch out. So I think it's a lot of shaping, and it's starting with small intervals. But again, do the parents, can they accept that? Because like parents, especially like, if it's like, well, I want to have results, because sometimes, we have people that look at the big picture, but then don't understand that there's building blocks. And then with each child, we have to respect where they're at, how much we can push and how much we can step back. So finally, like with, we had a success last Wednesday. There was an extinction burst, child was escalated, but I didn't see it escalate further. So then I'm just kind of like, okay, I was watching the behavior. Okay, can it be pushed? And he started calming down, which is good. Mom started calming down also, which is good. But it's it's again, it's like, how much do you push and how much do you pull back? You know,
Mhm.
that's the toughest part. I think that's the challenge that
Yeah, that's true.
Oops.
For me, oh,
Sorry, hold on.
I see some news. For me, I also agree with Tante. It's all about shaping. I think Dr. Henley, his way is more of like the phase change from extinction to like the reality version of shaping up the behaviors so that they wouldn't end up getting into situations where like would be extinction bursts and more severe behaviors occurring. So, and then that's why they, in real lives, it can't be like, we cannot expect everyone to be very consistent. If it's our own, if it's just the parents, if it's just us, if it's just school environment, maybe it could stay at least consistent in that part. But outer world, like the real world, it's just inconsistent for all of us. So I think the part where that Amna said later on, he asked the clients to work on like tolerance and things. It's just about, I think it's learning about the real world, shaping up to be ready for the real world.
That's
Mhm.
yeah, the unpredictability and like having the flexibility
Yeah,
to
it's
deal with them.
unpredictable, right? Yeah.
Mm.
So they have to say yes. I think
Yeah.
before we would explain that as variable ratio or
That's it. Yeah,
yeah, variable
that's right.
reinforcement, but that's the reality. So I think he is doing a job to make things consistent enough so
Mhm.
that the clients can learn in that environment, and then opening up the scope so that they can learn what the reality is and to
Yeah.
shape it up. So yeah, I think that's the part that's really attractive for me.
Mhm.
And for the safety part, I think that's why all clinics, all centers should have the PCMA training, the safety training, which
Yeah.
is not coming in Korea yet for all the
Oh, okay.
clinics and schools. It's not enough to safeguard the clients and also the therapists. It's either or. Like, we only try to protect the clients while therapists get hit and like injured, or sometimes they intervene too much, like with the physical
Mhm.
restraints, so that the therapist wouldn't get hurt, but the clients might get hurt. So I think like in Korea, we have to work a bit more on safeguarding and actually getting certified, and yeah, and things like that, which is not coming yet, which I'm working on.
That's good. Yeah, that's really important.
How's the situations in like Sydney and London
In
and
regards
Jakarta?
to
Yeah,
like the
like
trainings, like
yeah, the safety training part. There's the escalation cycle, right? And there's the part that we make the BSPs, but then the what do we say? The emergency situations that
crisis management. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we can't manage, like that goes beyond um the BSP part, where we can where they wouldn't have the mind to listen to us or anything. Then we go to that part, the emergency, the crisis management part, right? So that
Yeah.
part, it needs to be educate it needs to be trained before by some certified people, right?
Yeah.
Do you have like, do all the countries that I'm talking with have those things?
I don't know
No?
about the UK, to be honest,
Oh,
because
okay.
I've never worked at a center here.
All right, right.
Yeah.
There's Mabo here. We're going through Mabo training. It's quite interesting, and it gives an alternative to restrictive practice. So I think like it's very interesting, and it talks about a lot on safety of both the client and the practitioner. It teaches you to assess things. So say, for example, if you notice, like a behavior happening, or in general, like if you see something, because like again, like with our line of work is quite broad. So we have also clients that uh, use knives.
Mhm. That's beyond our control now.
That's why, because we don't know, like especially the older ones, though. So it teaches us to assess situations, like like if you can't see a client's hand, you have to be careful with that. To look at body language, like pacing. There's something, there's something going on. Assess the room. What are potential dangers? Is there something in the room that is a trigger to the person? So it talks about that. It talks about also like it's okay to step out of the room and monitor from outside of the room if you have a very severe behavior, and then get help from outside. So it what's nice is that it focuses a lot on practitioners safety. Um, it teaches also like ways to avoid or block body language to talk to the client and things like that. CPI also does a good job, I think. I think like when it comes to these training, Jiun, it's not always going to be a one size fit all. So the
Yeah.
more, because like was it CPI or something? I don't know. It talks about like body language when you are tone of voice, body language when you're speaking with a person who is in a state of frustration or state of fear, a state of manipulation, things like that. So it's quite neat. But then others don't offer that. So I think like the more that you expose yourself to these different trainings, then you can combine them and make what's suitable for a client and
Mhm.
you can put that into the BSP.
Yeah. And actually, like I am trying to go through those things. And what I find is I really like it that they break it down into like more specific scenarios. But in a sense, like if it's like a real emergency, I don't think they would have the skill to go through all of that. Like, okay, this is what situation, this is that situation. And to practice and actually have them really fluent in that moments, I think it should be a bit more simplified. Like for me, I think that's the kind of um, thought that I had when I was going through all of them. Not all of them, the things that I've seen. Yeah.
The Mabo is more generic, I think.
Felicia, while you were in the States, did you get like some helpful trainings about that?
No. So that is the answer. However, I had worked in a school district when I was student teaching, and a child was escalated, and the school basically had a safe room for the child. But what was difficult was to calm the child enough to
transition, right?
To transition. And what had happened for really young kids, we leave the kid inside the room if we are not able to transition him yet, and we have all the other kids go outside to the playground, and try to control the situation that way. Or we need to define really well the precursor behavior, so we can safely transport that child to a safe room before the really hardcore challenging behavior occurs.
I see.
Yeah, but yeah, in Indonesia it seems like humane treatments of clients with severe challenging behavior, unfortunately, maybe reserved to the very elite part of the social of the population. It's not a thing, unfortunately.
Okay. It will come, right? It will come. Fingers crossed for it. It will come.
It's very it's almost comical for me when I attend all this, when Westerners or people from the West talk about sometimes ethics, because it's just so far away from where we are, right? And oftentimes it's just not possible to do yet. Obviously, as practitioners, we should be working as hard as we can to make baby steps towards a more humane, non-restrictive treatments of clients. But I have to say, it's a long, 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 long way.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think it's also the regulations and like public funding, like government funding to support ABA or provide services for disability. Those are the bodies that actually force us to take that. Because you can't, like, say, you can't tap into this funding because there's a lot of red tapes. So that forces us to go to pursue these safety measures. But it also depends on the employers, because typically who provide these are employers, whether it's a school, a certain organization, and stuff like that. And so it really depends. I mean, I've always had these training, fortunately, through the organization that I've worked with. So it's not like I go out and like it's not like a workshop, like you go in and you sit down and you go through a workshop for a day workshop or something like that. But it's primarily it's not like an open workshop, but it's primarily done through organization. So. But again, because of the government funding that we are using, that kind of forces us also to look into these kind of matters.
Yeah, okay. Thank you guys for the discussion. We'll wrap up now, but if you have more things to say, we can do more on the WhatsApp. And for our next December meeting, maybe we can discuss on the WhatsApp for the specific date. Okay. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sure.
Okay. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
So nice.
Well, thank
Right,
you.
thank you for
Thank
seeing you.
you.
Alicia and bye. I'm Na.
Yeah, you can leave first. I will close.
Holy.